Record Store Nation. You know what we are in the midst of, right? You do know this. It is Rocktober. It is the, 4th, 5th, 27th annual Rocktober. So welcome to the Record Store. This is the podcast, the music, rock and roll podcast, where I randomly pull an album off of my vast, voluminous wall of CDs and talk about it, whether it's an old album that I haven't listened to in 18 million years, or a new album, or an album that just got lost in the shuffle. I am such an avid collector of records, mostly CDs. I still like what do they call it, the physical media, whatever, streaming, whoever. I want the artist to make the money, and there's just something twisted and weird in the back of my mind that I feel like if I buy the CD, the artist will make the money. If I stream the music, then the artist is probably getting screwed. So that's kind of my philosophical way of looking at it and justifying buying CDs all the time. Have tons of vinyl, but it's all about the CDs. It's been all about the CDs since whatever CD technology started in the 80s or whatever. So it's still all about the CDs. They made something of a comeback last year. I know vinyl made an enormous comeback last year, and the last couple years. But anyway, this is the Record Store. Enough about that. We normally just pull an album at random and talk about that album, whether it's something I've listened to a bunch of times or not at all, because there are CDs that I've not listened to at all in my collection because I'm just obsessed with getting more and more CDs. So, but this month, the Rocktober theme is completely different. It is about the Rock and Wrestling Connection. There we go. Take two. Put that on the blooper reel. So the Rock and Wrestling Connection, that's something that Brian came up with in looking through songs that were featured in pay-per-views or PLEs, whichever you prefer to call them. Sometimes it was bands that I'd never heard of before, became a fan of. But today we're talking about a band that I actually was already a big fan of. I already really like these guys. It's Three Doors Down. Three Doors Down was featured. They were one of the featured songs from WrestleMania 21 in 2005. That was the WrestleMania known as WrestleMania Goes Hollywood. So I'm not going to talk too much about that show because that's what Brian is doing, the part 2 of these 2-part episodes that we're doing. The crossover, as it were, like when DC and Marvel get together. So he's going to be doing the review of WrestleMania 21 on the next episode on the network. So be sure to listen to that. But Three Doors Down, this album is called 17 Days. The song that we're finding on this album, we will get to. That was the feature song on WrestleMania 5. But here's a fun fact. This has nothing to do with the show, with the WrestleMania show, I should say. But fun fact, Three Doors Down was actually episode 0 of the Record Store. So when I first got this crazy notion of doing a monthly or bi-monthly or whatever the timing of it was, when I first got this idea of doing a music podcast, I just decided to record one just with no script or anything and just kind of throw some ideas out there. And I knew kind of what I wanted to shoot for. And the album that I happened to grab was a Three Doors Down album. So that was just like a demo, I guess, as it were. That's what us in the industry call it, you know. So I tried doing an episode, and I kind of actually liked the way it turned out. I thought there was something to this, and it's definitely evolved somewhat and changed somewhat. We've done some theme episodes each year, Christmas, and different things that we've come up with. But the very first one, episode 0, I like to call it, was Three Doors Down. So that was the very first episode of the Record Store. So here we are back again with Three Doors Down. Lo these many 63 episodes in the can, as it were. So this is episode 63 with 17 days. Three Doors Down, let's talk about them for a minute. So very polarizing. I feel like there's certain bands that I would lump in with them in terms of you either love or you hate. And the first one that comes to mind is Nickelback. Everybody either loves or hates Nickelback. In fact, I think most people hate Nickelback. But there's definitely an audience for Nickelback because they've been around and they've got millions of record sales. So I would say Nickelback. Creed is another one that people either love or hate. Dave Matthews is one that I personally hate. And also very polarizing. So I think Three Doors Down is in that group, of bands that just are very polarizing for a couple of reasons. and we'll get to that. So Three Doors Down from Escatawpa, Mississippi. Started in, I had to really think about that as I was pronouncing it. Not Mississippi. Shit, I can spell that even, besides pronouncing it. But Escatawpa. So that is where they're from. They started in 1996. All the original members are gone with the exception of Brad Arnold, who is a fantastic singer. So this is one of those bands where, you know, the revolving door, the musical doors of players. But as long as they have that voice, that one guy, you know, the genre and the type of music they put together has pretty much stayed the same. But as long as they have that consistent thread of that singer and that voice, they continue on as Three Doors Down. First couple albums were really big, a handful of really big singles. In looking them up as to how they are described, I would just say hard rock, but I saw alternative, I saw southern rock mentioned. I didn't really think of them that way, even though they're from Mississippi. I didn't really think of them as southern rock, but we'll talk about that in the first couple songs. Overall, they've sold 30 million albums. So this is a band that has, in only 6 albums that they've put out, they've sold a lot of records. So 30 million albums for Three Doors Down. So really cool. Original guitarist Matt Roberts left in 2012 due to, quote, health reasons, which were actually drug-related health reasons. And actually, he died in 2016, so due to an overdose. So he is no longer with the band, obviously. Original bass player. They've had some hardships in this band. Between that and then the bass player, Todd Harrell, served time for vehicular homicide. Also served time for drug charges, gun charges. Eventually got kicked out of the band, you think? So that's one of the reasons why a couple of the original members are no longer with the band. One of them is no longer with us altogether. The name Three Doors Down, I thought this was like a dad joke kind of thing. So when they were first starting out, they were walking through town and saw a dilapidated building with signage, and the letters were falling off the signs. The letters were missing altogether. So the sign that they looked at said Doors Down. And at the time, the band was a trio, hence Three Doors Down. So there you go. I wish there was a better story for that. I wish there was like a more romantic and cool story, but that's it. So I'm like, all right, well, I have to say it because it at least explains it. So anyway, so Kryptonite comes out. It was a single before the first album even came out. Kryptonite blew up on the radio, got them national airplay, and then they recorded the first album. That's the song, pretty much Kryptonite on that album. The song got them signed, essentially. So as we were talking about, controversial. So the main thing that I think they're controversial for is because I guess Brad Arnold for the most part, because it's been him consistently through the history of the band. They are Republicans, they are conservatives. So there's just that natural, blue versus red in this country right now, and the politics that are so venomous and so hateful, and that's just the way life is in America these days. So they're controversial because of that. I kind of like to look at it like, is the music good? Yes, no. That's it. I don't necessarily have to agree with all of their politics and all of their messages to be able to appreciate the music. And I do greatly, greatly appreciate the music. So besides the fact that they are well known, I guess Brad, or they, I can say, are well known as being conservative. They also started a big charity called the Better Life Foundation. It's a children's charity for raising money for kids, also raising money for Hurricane Katrina back in the day, and also just other various disasters that have hit the South. So I would not be surprised if they raised money for the couple of hurricanes that just passed through the South, because that's who these guys are, and that's what good people they are. So they raised money with various benefit shows. They did auctions that they worked with other bands on, auctioning off guitars and autographs and photos and what have you. So I think there's definitely good to them, and it's okay. There's, none of us are perfect. They happen to be Republicans, but they make great music. They've done a lot of charity work, so be it. Like I said, 6 albums out. The last one was in 2016, so we need more. We're way past that. We're 8 years after their last album. We need to have some more Three Doors Down, please. Or Doors Down, if they're a quintet, like I think they were at Last Incarnation, they should be 5 Doors Down, maybe, no? I've seen them a couple times. One time was an acoustic show, which was fantastic, at House of Blues here in Chicago. and I remember the floor shaking, literally. They not the whole show was not acoustic. They did do some electric stuff, but the floor was shaking at one point because it was so exciting. It was such a good show, and I've seen them do regular shows as well at other venues, but that one really stood out to me. Really, really enjoyed seeing Three Doors Down live. So, as I said, 17 Days is their third album, came out in 2005. It actually did hit number one on the Billboard charts. The name of the album, there was much speculation, but the actual name of the album, 17 Days, was based on the fact that there were only 17 days between the last tour ending and them getting back in the studios to record it. So I guess it was a reference to the grind of just getting off the road and then having to get back in the studios to record again. So, like I said, it did hit number one on Billboard's charts. It hit number 6 in both Germany and Canada, so hats off to them. Only hit 198 in France, so I don't get that one. It's weird. It charted in almost every country in Europe, but for whatever reason, it only hit 198 in France. I don't know those French. You know, they like Jerry Lewis, so whatever. The album itself, very weird artwork. It shows the band members at like this kind of countrified, like deep in the woods Last Supper kind of scene. It's almost like a country Last Supper, Beverly Hillbillies kind of setting. It's just very odd. There's food on the table, but there's also like a wolf pelt. There's like all kinds of whiskey and bourbon on the table, as you would expect, and a naked baby. Just for good measure, there's a naked baby on the table. So lyrics are included, but they are absolutely microscopic, so thanks so much. I had to really strain to see the lyrics here. Album clocks in at just over 44 minutes, so why don't we get started? It is Rocktober, right? Okay, we're going to get started. So, all right, first song is called Right Where I Belong. Immediate hard rock start to it. And in the description, where I mentioned that some people refer to them as Southern rock, this has kind of a Lynyrd Skynyrd feel to it. So I did not ever pick up on that before. So I think mainly his voice. I don't think that Brad Arnold's voice necessarily sounds like the singers from Lynyrd Skynyrd, the various multiple singers that there have been. I never picked up on that before, and I don't think it's just the Southern connection where they kind of sound like Lynyrd Skynyrd here because they too are from the South. So there's just something about his voice on this particular song that sounds very Lynyrd Skynyrd-ish to me. So Right Where I Belong gets the album started off on a kind of a theme, a bitter relationship song. He gave his heart to her. She gave her his heart. He doesn't know why he gave her his heart, but regardless, he feels that being with her is right where he belongs. So it is the many shades of the roller coaster that is relationships, my friends. So it's a good rocking start, right where I belong. Kind of confusing. I guess it's a love-hate relationship type of deal, but Right Where I Belong, really good start, good rockin' start to the album. So, all right, second song, one of the highlights for me is called It's Not Me. It's actually kind of feels like a follow-up to the first song. Continues the theme of the bitterness, a little bit mellower in terms of the music, but it's a very throbbing beat, very compelling, and it totally just draws you in. So, song is just a venomous song. The song is called It's Not Me, and so the lyrics talk about, look what you did to me, look who you turned me into, I'm not me anymore. And so, again, it continues the bitterness from the first song, and just moves it along to the next step. So, different type of, like I said, a little bit mellower music than the first song. First song was totally rocking out. This one's a little bit mellower. So, I think this song, It's Not Me, is just brilliant. I love this song. It's so good. It's very hypnotic. I just think it is prototypical Three Doors Down. I think the way he sings here is just, if you looked him up in the dictionary, this is the song you would get. So I love what he does with the lyrics here. There's like a word in a sense that he keeps saying over and over. Look what you did. Look what you did. That's how he kind of says it. So he's obviously saying, look what you did. But the way he phrases it, it all becomes one long run-on word. So it's look what you did. Look what you did. You know, I keep saying it because I kept singing it as it was going. So just excellent phrasing. I think this should have been a huge single, and yet it was not released as a single. So I don't get it. They released 5. This is a weird one because this album, they released 5 songs as singles here. And It's Not Me was not one of them. And I just think it's such a brilliant song. I literally went back and listened to it a second time. After I was taking my notes and doing for the episode, I literally went back and listened to it again in its entirety just because I enjoyed it so much. So my only thought is that it was too bitter. It's a bitter song. Look what you did to me type of deal. And maybe they thought that wouldn't carry over on the radio. I'm not sure. But man, what a great song. Second song, It's Not Me. Third song is called Let Me Go. This was the top single of the album. Again, there were 5 songs released as singles. This was the top one. Let Me Go has an acoustic start to it. I literally am getting goosebumps when this song comes on. I literally just get chills when songs like this come on. There's certain songs that do that to me. A lot of Stevie Nicks songs do that to me. This song did that to me. So I've talked about this before on the show. I have this weird fantasy that I drift into sometimes when I'm listening to music where I'm envisioning myself on the set of a movie, running down the street. Sometimes maybe it's pouring rain. You're going to think I'm crazy if you don't already know that. But I'm running down the street, pouring rain perhaps, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have to be rainy. Singing this song, and singing a song. There's certain songs that just have that effect on me. I drift off into this daydream of this Kevin Bacon-ish type deal where I'm running down the street singing that song. And this is one of those songs. Let Me Go is definitely one of those songs. So it's the second song in a row that I literally took the notes and then went back and replayed the song because I just wanted to hear it again. And I wanted to focus on the actual song as opposed to writing notes about it. So believe it or not, more relationship disillusion here. This one, I think maybe because now they're big stars. She loves him, but she doesn't even know who he is, so he's disillusioned by that because, he's got this girl that loves him. She says she loves him, but yet she doesn't even know who he is as a person. So drums really underrated here. The way the song builds, just incredible. The way Arnold's voice just builds, the way his singing style builds in the song is just so good. Honestly, this song and It's Not Me back to back are just literally masterpieces. And I'm not going to throw that word around too much, but 2 masterpieces in a row on this album. So this, like I said, this was the top single from the album, deservedly so. Just a fantastic song in the 3rd spot. So, all right, we're halfway down. We are going to take a break. We're going to pay some sponsors. We're going to pay some bills. And we will be back with side 2 of 17 Days by Three Doors Down. Rock and Wrestling Connection. It's Rocktober at the record store.
Don't miss Memphis Wrestling Live. Next Sunday, October 27th, WWE Hall of Famer Tony Atlas is coming to Memphis Wrestling. Plus, former WWF superstar Tugboat. Sunday, November 17th, boxing legend Butterbean is coming to Memphis Wrestling. Then Saturday, November 23rd, Memphis Wrestling returns to Ghost River Brewing Company on Main Street in Memphis. Plus, watch AEW Full Gear at Dave & Buster's in Memphis. Saturday, November 30th, don't miss Memphis Wrestling's Stars of Tomorrow featuring Wrestle Center coach Jonathan Gresham along with our next class of trainees. Sunday, December 8th, AJ Francis returns to Memphis Wrestling for the Grind City Rumble. All tickets are on sale now. Get yours right now at memphiswrestling.tv.
All right, we are back at the record store. This is Rocktober. If I need to remind you, this is Rocktober. So we are in this month on all episodes of the record store. We're delving into the Rock and Wrestling Connection. We're finding songs that are from bands that I actually either liked at the time or came to like after the fact, that they had songs featured on wrestling pay-per-views. So this week it is Three Doors Down. The album is 17 Days, which is the time frame it took from them to get off the road and get back in the studio again. Slackers. So 17 Days, which has the song that actually is coming up on the second side here that was featured at WrestleMania 21, did we say? Is that the one? Let me look it up. Yeah, WrestleMania 21. There's been damn near 50, 60 of them, so I can't keep them straight. So anyway, back to side 2. So we are on the 4th song. It is called Be Somebody. I know I mentioned, I referenced Leonard Skinner and a kind of a Leonard Skinner sound on that first song. This one, very Bad Company sound. So definitely kind of a change of pace. Again, this guy's voice is just so good. I don't think he necessarily was channeling either of those bands, but it just has those kind of sounds to him in these 2 songs. So Be Somebody, a very Bad Company kind of sound to it. So as far as the message goes, change of pace. This is the fourth song. The first couple songs, very angsty and very relationship disillusion-y. This one is about when he left home with the band to pursue his dreams and telling his mom not to worry. He's got this. He's got to go out on his own. And basically her coming back to him as far as like that whole situation and worrying about him, quite frankly. So kind of a sweet message, I guess, especially in light of the fact and in contrast of the first couple songs on the album. So very good change of direction, I thought. And it kind of showed that they're not one-trick ponies. You know, it's not every song. I mean, there is definitely, I will admit to the haters out there that don't like Three Doors Down, I will admit that there is a similarity in sound on a lot of their songs. But when that works, when what you're doing works, I mean, it's not like Guns N' Roses has like 75 different sounds that they have, and U2, all these other great bands, when you hear U2, you know it's U2. You know what I mean? And same thing with Guns N' Roses. There's a very prototypical sound for certain bands, and this is a band that very many of their songs sound the same. And in a good way. You know, that's their sound. But what I'm getting at is that Be Somebody is a nice change of direction. Not all either love songs or relationship angst-y songs. This one is actually a kind of a sweet song about him singing to his mom about, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to go be a big star and be a rock star and make a career for myself. So I liked Be Somebody in the fourth spot. Fifth song, another big highlight of this album for me. There's a handful. Spoiler alert, there's a handful of highlights on this album. This is a really good album. Fifth song is called Landing in London. This is a duet with Bob Seger. It was the third single on the album. And if I recall correctly, when Brian and I did our favorite albums of all time, I think there was a Bob Seger. I'm pretty sure there was a Bob Seger album on Brian's list. So Bob Seger, I know, will get well received. Landing in London is a haunting acoustic open to it. And quite frankly, a love song. Finally, a love song. And I mentioned the Goosebumps on the earlier song. I'm going to say it right here. Another Goosebumps song. So that's two on this album, at least so far, that are Goosebump songs for me, that just give me this, they fill me with this emotion of just wanting to run out of the house and run down the street singing this song. So just a great song. I love the way it builds. They add strings in this song. The song would have been fine without Bob Seger. The song would have been an excellent Three Doors Down song, but man, did they make a great choice in having Bob Seger duet with him on this song. It just super enhances this song. Like I said, the song itself is great, don't get me wrong, but man, adding Bob Seger to it just makes it a masterpiece. Honestly, another just excellent song on this album. I think Landing in London is kind of an odd title for it because basically Arnold the two of them, but primarily Arnold is singing about how hard life on the road is and how the thought of his girl is what keeps him going. The main chorus is he sings, "All I Think About Is You." I think it was a misfire in a sense to call it Landing in London because they could have called it All I Think About Is You, which he repeats over and over again in the chorus. They could have released it as made it a much bigger hit. I think that it had everything going for it in the terms of it's an excellent song. It had a big name singer on it in Bob Seger. It should have been a much bigger hit. And honestly, I don't know if the name of it was what held it back, but I think had they called it All I Think About Is You, I think this song would have been a huge single for them. It was released, it was a single, but it didn't explode. I don't think it exploded the way it nearly could have had they handled it a little bit differently. But just another remarkable song, Landing in London in the 5 spot. So, all right, 6th song is called The Real Life. Not at all a bad song, but after having like 3 masterpieces in the first 5, this song is just kind of there for me. So it's a good song. Like I said, don't get me wrong, it's a good song, but it's just kind of there. Arnold is singing about the side of him that no one else sees. You know, he's got a vulnerable side, an insecure side, but he's going to keep on trying to find himself and be a better man. So Another acoustic start to this song. It builds again nicely. Again, like I said, good song. Absolutely nothing wrong with it, but just not a classic like some of the other stuff we've already heard on this album. So, all right, seventh song is the Wrestling Connection song. It is Behind Those Eyes is the name of the song. This is the WrestleMania song, and honestly, it was a weird fit to me. I haven't seen WrestleMania since 2000. That WrestleMania since 2005 when it came out, so damn near 20 years ago. So I don't recall how they used Behind Those Eyes in the format or in the broadcast. But it's a weird fit. I will say completely, it's a weird fit. I could see it possibly being used, and maybe Brian will talk about this on the review of the pay-per-view, but I could see it as possibly like the soundtrack to an Undertaker video montage, because it's kind of a haunting song. It has the acoustic start to it, but not like the bombast. Like, Three Doors Down is a hard rock band. There's very many songs that have the bombast, and you would think that those would be one of the songs that they would use for a wrestling tie-in, It's really another kind of breakup song or bad relationship turn where the relationship took a turn for the worse. It's about them lying to each other and how they've changed as people. I think, honestly, it's not at all a bad song at all. I like the song, but I don't get the fit of how it was used for a WrestleMania. So hopefully Brian will hear this first before he reviews the pay-per-view and explain how it was used. Because like I said, the only thing I can think of is that this haunting acoustic kind of song would be like showing Undertaker highlight clips or something, because it would go with the theme of that. So I think there were other songs on this album that would have been a much better fit, I think, for a wrestling pay-per-view. So Behind Those Eyes, another great song, just don't get how it ties in with WrestleMania at number 7. So, all right, 8th song is called Never Will I Break. So, in fact, this would be a better song. This would be a better fit. It's got a throbbing beat. It's got bombastic drums. And I think also it's more of a lyrical fit because as far as like wrestling, because it's a song about struggling to persevere and go on when life is tough. The road that Brad Arnold sings about on this song, the road that he walks down is challenging, but he will never give up. He will never break. He will never give up in his quest to move on. So I just think Never Will I Break, like, it's just so ironic that it's the next song on the album after the song that I feel like didn't really make a connection to wrestling. Never Will I Break totally made a connection with wrestling. Don't know why they didn't use it, but whatever. So, all right, 9th song, very interesting song. It's called Father's Son. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, I didn't remember, what this was about. I'm thinking, is this going to be a tearjerker? As the father of a son, I'm like, is this going to be like Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin? That song always gets to me. That as a father, that song just gets me every time. So I'm thinking Father's Son is going to get me. And it did not get me. I just have to say what it's about. So it's a grimy song. It's a tale of a guy who gets very introspective after, seeing a prostitute who was 17 years old. And I'm not making that up. That's what the lyrics of this are about. So he gets introspective about it. He gets deep in his thoughts about it. So I'm really hoping that this is songwriting, that this is just songwriting, and this is not autobiographical or biographical for that matter. He thinks about what he's done to her. He thinks about how he has a daughter at home himself and how bad he feels. And he thinks about how now he is ashamed to be his father's son at this point. So that's the reference. That's why it's called Father's Son, is because he's ashamed after these horrible things that he's done that he is his father's son. So it's actually a really good song. I appreciate the songwriting of the song. We're just going to go there and assume that it's songwriting. I do appreciate how well written it is, and it's a very dark subject, obviously. And I'm okay with it being a dark subject because the song itself comes out really good. So make that make sense. Good song, really dark subject matter. So, all right, 10th song is called Live for Today. It is the 5th single. What's weird to me, I guess when they get, unless it's Rumors or maybe some Beatles albums, when they get down to the 5th single, you may not have ever heard it, and I honestly can't ever remember hearing "Live for Today" on the radio. I never heard it on the radio, and I will say that this song totally speaks to me. The song is about living regret-free, taking no days for granted. You're not guaranteed tomorrow, so you need to live for today, hence the name. I can see the positivity of this song. I can see the message led to it to be a single because it was such a positive message, unlike Father Son about a 17-year-old prostitute and about, some of the other things that, they don't necessarily, some of the bitter songs at the beginning here that didn't necessarily need to be singles. But I can see the positivity of the message of this song led to it being a single, but I think the song just got lost in the shuffle. I think by the time a fifth single is released, unless you're talking about, like I said, the Beatles or maybe Rumors or Michael Jackson Thriller, you're not going to get much airplay with a fifth single. So I agreed with the message. I thought it was a very good song. Just disappointing to me that it didn't make it big as a single. So, all right, 11th song is called My World. Oddly, was not a single, and yet I do remember hearing this one on the radio. So on rock radio, maybe on the stations that played the deeper cuts, I don't know. But My World, definitely remember hearing that one on the radio back in the day. A very edgy song. He can't keep her around because he's outgrown her, basically. His world moves so fast now that she is beneath him. I got the message from this one that, I'm a big rock star now. I can't deal with you and your bullshit. That's pretty much the kind of message that I got from this. So my problems are way bigger now. I can't deal with you. You're in my past, Kind of a jerk move, actually. Kind of like, I don't know, just really came across like kind of a douchebag on this. So hopefully this one is fiction, too. So hopefully this one, along with the 70-year-old prostitute song, hopefully these are both songwriting initiatives from Brad Arnold and the boys, and these are not autobiographical. So My World, good song at number 11, and then we end on the 12th song. It is called Here By Me. This was the fourth single. Ends the album on a completely different note. After so much bitterness and so much, just grimy stuff, like I said, the prostitution song, the fact that he outgrew the girl in the last song and is above her now and better than her and doesn't want anything to do with her anymore. Here By Me is a beautiful love song. It's so in contrast with most of the rest of this album. What I envision if I listen to this song, Here By Me, which you've heard, it's like I said, this was one of the bigger singles from this album. When I envision this, when I close my eyes and envision the song, it is a slow dance at a prom. That's or at a wedding, for that matter. That's the song, like Chicago, Color My World, Eagles. What was the Eagles song? Best of My Love. Those are like these beautiful wedding song, prom song, slow dance songs. So Here By Me is this beautiful song. Ends the album on a completely different vibe from most of what the rest of this is. So on this one, Brad Arnold is basically saying that he's nothing without her. All that he has, all of it could go away, and it wouldn't matter as long as she is by his side. That's pretty much the message on this one. This is a devoted man that can't stand being apart from her, basically, is what he's singing here. So I think it was a beautiful way to end this album. I think had it been in the middle of the album, it probably would have. Well, I'm not going to say it would get lost in the shuffle, but I think it was a brilliant move putting this last, because after all the angst and all the bitterness and all the the challenging stuff that he sings about on most of the rest of this album, here's this beautiful love song to tie it all together. So I got to say, in summation, 17 Days, what an excellent album. If you only know a single or two from this album, you owe it to yourself to listen to more of it, to download the whole thing or go out and buy the whole thing, whatever. But man, there's some fantastic songs on here. If we were doing the regular concept of the show where the Patreon would be about my favorite song on the album, this would be challenging because there's a handful that I would be forced to choose between to pick out a favorite. So anyway, great record. The band takes way too much heat. I think they're wildly underrated. I think it's an excellent album, and I think that it's probably their best album. I'd have to go back and listen to the other 5 to see, but I do think that this is probably their best album just because there's no duds at all. There's a handful of okay songs, but there's no duds at all. And there's a couple of freaking, I used the word masterpiece like 3 times on this album. So just an incredible album, just fantastic. I'm so glad that they had the wrestling song on this, so I pulled that album because of the concept of what we're doing for Rocktober. So I will say, more Three Doors Down, please. It's been 8 years since the last album. Let's go. 8 or 9 years since the last album. Let's go. We need some more. Even if it's just Brad Arnold solo stuff. The guy's got a fantastic voice, and I'm sure the genre of the music that he would do would be the same. It'd be the same type of stuff. But man, either round up a couple session musicians and do Three Doors Down again, or just do stuff as yourself. I mean, obviously you'll sell more as Three Doors Down. So you gotta get back together or something. Do something. If these hurricanes have not brought you together to raise money and charity benefits for the South, then do something. Get back together and put out some albums for crying out loud. We need more. So that is it. Thank you to Rocktober. Thank you to Brian for producing this mess and making me sound better than I am. Thank you to Three Doors Down and the surviving member of Three Doors Down, Brad Arnold, for making such great music. And thank you to you for the biggest thank you to the Record Store Nation for listening and giving me the opportunity to have a platform to talk about the thing that I love the most in this world, and that is rock and roll music. So we will be back next week. Be sure to listen to Brian do the pay-per-view review of WrestleMania 21. Yeah, that's it, 21. I keep forgetting the number. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm getting old. But listen to his review of that show, and then we'll be back with you next week for the wrap-up of Rocktober with yet another song that is from the Rock and Wrestling Connection. So we'll see you next time. Patreon, stay with us. We're going to talk about a little bit more about the song that was from the pay-per-view. And we will see you next week for the next episode of The Record Store with the Rocktober Connection. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Stay with us.